Hello everyone, I just wanted to do a quick verbal disclaimer here as usual before we get into things. Though this video will not be as mature or discuss content as dark as previous entries in my OC Rundown series, just because this is a video about my OC content, it means that I will be mentioning or at least glossing over some subjects that might be triggering or uncomfortable to some viewers, maybe. So if you're a kid or sensitive to some heavier themes, then maybe steer clear of this video and others in this series. With that being said, let's get into things. Greetings, my little maggots. My name is Rot, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, then hi, hello, nice to have you here. This is the fourth part, or installment, of my POV, I Hold You Hostage and Force You to Listen to Me Talk About My OCs series, where I discuss some general lore information about my OCs in a universe called Phantasmagoria, also shortened to Fangoria. Before I jump into things, I have started a new Ask blog. This one is for Felix Noir, yay! So like other Ask blogs, if you'd like to ask him a question, then you could submit either anonymously or otherwise at ask-felix-noir.tumblr.com. The link to the Ask blog will also be in the description. Aside from just that, I also recently started a Ko-Fi page where if you feel inclined to do so, you can either make a one-time donation or become a member for exclusive work-in-progress content, commission discounts, and names featured in my videos. I just wanted to say thank you to Pisco and Astroluna for becoming members and supporting me. I really appreciate it. And if you'd like to support me as well, the link to my Ko-Fi will also be in the description. Please consider donating if you can, or also you can support me just by watching my videos as well, which is also very appreciated. Back to the video. If you're unfamiliar with my OC content here on YouTube, or, well, my OC content in general, then you might not be aware that I'm primarily a yami kawaii horror artist who dabbles in heavier themes in my work. Since I have rebranded my channel, I've been a lot more true to myself, which is relieving and exciting to me, so my actual channel aesthetic now kind of reflects who I am and also my interests more. So it may be a little bit less surprising to people that I've been obsessed with horror and uncomfortable themes since I was a little kid. As such, my adoration for horror, both psychological and violent horror, manifests in the creations of my OCs and the world that they inhabit. As mentioned, my OC universe is called Phantasmagoria, and it's essentially a universe either full of awful, terrible people, or people that are victims, taken advantage of, and or are hurt by terrible, awful people. I'd say that it's kind of event universe, and a lot of the violence and stuff is offset by comically over-the-top absurdist humor. It's just kind of fun. Now, though I've only so far made videos about OCs that fall on the terrible, or I guess in the case of Ophelia, questionable spectrum of the cast, this video is going to be about two characters that actually fall on the good people end of the spectrum. These characters are Felix and Charlotte Noir, who are twins and are the younger siblings of Arthur Noir. I decided to do them both in one video just because I have less to say about them individually than some of my other characters. So here we go, boys. Starting with their creation, Felix was the third character I created in Fangoria shortly after Vince. He didn't change too much from when I first conceptualized him to how he is currently, and the same is true for Charlie. I knew what I wanted them to be before I made them, and they've actually stayed relatively consistent, especially compared to other characters. Most changes have actually been updates or additions rather than actual overhauls or major character changes. Felix is a studious nerd with a snarky sense of humor and a penchant for always seeing the best in other people, and Charlie is a party girl, but also is a street-smart, headstrong rock of a woman who has much more of a stable life than you would assume just by looking at her. Their backstory is also relatively straightforward. The two of them were born in Boise, Idaho to their parents, Eric and Alana Noir. By the way, Eric is Alana's second husband and Arthur's stepdad. At the time they were born, Arthur was already like 14 and never had much of a relationship with either of them, as he left home when he was 18 and before they were really old enough to form a bond with him. Now, Charlie and Felix, compared to most of the cast, are like super normal. They had an average upbringing, and both of them, especially Charlie, have stable heads on their shoulders. Felix had always been the academic type from when he was a kid up until current day. He was always a whiz in maths and is currently going to college with the goals of being a college maths professor and/or tutor. He and Charlie are both currently 21, but Felix moved from Boise to Morgan Hill, California when he was 17, almost 18, to attend college. And being that his brother already lived in Silicon Valley, he wasn't too worried about moving to a new state, being that he wouldn't be entirely alone. And he kind of assumed wrong because he kind of assumed Arthur would help him, and he didn't. After moving to California, though, that's where he met a few important people in his life, notably Vincent Valentine and Waylon Breyer, who I'll discuss a bit more in the relationship section of the video. Personality-wise, Felix is a very hopeful and optimistic individual who tends to be a bit naive in his worldview. He looks at everyone around him and only sees the best in them, and can be a bit jaded in his perception of others. He likes to believe that people are inherently good and all have inherently positive intentions, and that tends to have him getting mixed up with people that really don't have his best interests at heart. He's also a real compulsive helper of others and tends to put other people's needs before his own. So even when he does see the negatives in other people, his mentality is that he's there to help. Some final general notes about him is that he has social anxiety disorder, which he takes medication for, and is not great with confrontation and sticking up for himself, especially when it comes to people he cares about or has a relationship with. Charlie, unlike her brother, has never been much of the academic type. In fact, she actually has dyslexia and has trouble reading or studying. Also, just like Felix and Eric, she is legally blind without her glasses. Rather than taking the path of academics, instead, she took one on the side of the arts, and is currently a tattoo artist and a piercing specialist who owns her own business. Though she's not the studious type, she's incredibly sharp in other ways, particularly when it comes to people. She's resourceful and intelligent on the street, and is generally great when it comes to, sort of sussing people out and judging those around her. On the subject of her personality, she's genuinely kind and gentle when she wants to be, but is also strong-willed and is not afraid to defend herself when others are being unfair, cruel, or manipulative to her. She's also quite protective of those around her, especially Felix, which is one of the main reasons that she felt kind of inspired to move to Cali to be closer to him. Even though she loves him to death, she's often quite exasperated by his naivete and refusal to stand his own, as well as his passive and dismissive nature about others harming him. Lastly, I would also describe her as a floater, in the sense that she likes to live life in the moment and enjoy it to its fullest, though she's smart about doing so and values herself and her safety. On to species. Felix and Charlie are both hybrids between two different kinds of doll species, those being ball-jointed dolls and voodoo dolls. For those of you that haven't seen my other OC videos, Fangoria is a universe filled with humanoid monsters and, well, humans themselves, and most of my OCs are monsters or creatures of some sort. For example, from previous videos, Vince is an arachnid human hybrid, Ophelia is a shifter, and most relevant, Arthur is a voodoo doll. Now, Arthur actually had a different father than Felix and Charlie do, and this guy was also a voodoo doll, just like Alana, his mother, is, meaning that Arthur himself is pure-blooded in that sense. Eric Noir, Felix and Charlie's dad, is a ball-jointed doll, which is why the twins are both very small and why they look different than Arthur. I explained it in my last OC video, so if you want a more detailed explanation, I'd recommend checking out Archie's video, but basically, Charlie and Felix also both have voodoo doll capabilities. With the DNA of others, or just by touching them, they can inflict injury or pain on themselves to hurt other people. They are also capable of sharing pleasure as well, and though they can't die from an injury that they choose to share, they experience all of the pain or pleasure fully even if they do choose to share it. The twins, though, both rarely use any of those abilities, and especially in the case of Charlie, are really tight-lipped about them. Besides just magical abilities, they also have physical differences because of their species. Their skin is hard and firm, they have ball joints, a fracture or a dislocated limb can be easily popped back into a socket, but with some pain of course. Some internal anatomy is different, and then they lack certain features like a belly button or fingernails. Felix specifically lacks nipples, and Charlie also wears just fake acrylic nails, so that's a couple of differences between the two of them. Onto their whole, dynamic though, Felix and Charlie have a really positive relationship as siblings. Even though, as I already mentioned before, Charlie can get a bit frustrated with his overly people-pleasing nature, the two of them are, and always have been, close friends. When possible, they spend a lot of time together, go out together, and enjoy seeing each other often. There's never really a week that goes by without them FaceTiming at the very least, and it's rare for them not to go out for lunch at least every couple of weeks, if not even more often than that. Now we get into the super spicy parts, boys, the relationship dynamic between them and some other characters in the cast. Starting with their family, both Charlie and Felix have close relationships with their parents, but strained relationships with their brother. Felix himself tends to struggle standing up for himself when it comes to Arthur, and often falls into the trap of being indebted to him for one reason or another. Even though he doesn't like him and is fully aware that he's iffy as fuck, he folds like a house of cards to his will. Charlie, on the other hand, is actively aggressive towards Arthur and makes it clear that she ain't falling for his fake smiles and his bullshit. She gets frustrated with Felix and her parents for being passive when it comes to dealing with him, and often stands up to him on their behalf as well. Outside of family get-togethers on holidays, Charlie just avoids him like the plague and goes full no contact. On to Vincent's Valentine. Felix met him when he was new to the Silicon Valley area, and they kind of met circumstantially. Felix didn't have enough money to pay for his groceries, and Vince, who was behind him in line, offered to do it for him. From there, they hit it off and have been really close friends for 4 years or so. Now, Vince's behavior towards him is really creepy, possessive, and probably inappropriate for a friendship. Vince picks him up. Felix is light and is only 4'7", dotes on him, love bombs him, buys him cute clothes without being asked, calls him my dolly, and other such things. Felix thinks it's cute, calls him Vinny in return, and reciprocates a lot of the affections, though notably less enthusiastically, but Charlie does not like their dynamic, nor Vince in general at all. From the moment that Felix first introduced them, she hated his arse and wanted Felix to cut him out of his life immediately. She could tell from the very beginning that Vince was an unstable weirdo, but despite her distaste for him, Felix hasn't taken her advice and just continues being his friend, unable to see any of the warning signs that should have had him running long ago. On to Felix's boyfriend, Waylon Breyer. By the way, I think I should just mention it. Waylon is a character designed and owned by my friend and stream mod Tem, also known as Bellina LPS, whose Tumblr will be linked down below. Just thought I would mention it because some people don't realize that he's not my design or character. Tem just made him to be in my universe. Anyway, Felix met Waylon because after he turned 21, he began working as a bartender. Waylon met him because he was nearly blackout drunk at the bar that Felix worked at one night, and Felix drove him home after his shift. Since then, the two of them have started dating, and their relationship is a bit rocky. For the most part, they're a compatible couple and get along well. Waylon just has some issues about being open and transparent with him and tends to be distant sometimes. Their relationship isn't unhealthy in like the malicious way, more just because Waylon and Felix both struggle with unresolved issues and don't know how to talk it out. Charlie has met Waylon quite a few times and the two of them get along really well. In fact, he looks up to her quite a lot and they're better friends than one would think. They agree on a lot of stuff, especially with Felix being naive and a bit dumb when it comes to who he's buddy-buddy with. Both of them hate Arthur and especially Vince. Finally, Charlie has a relationship with Shiloh Kikumoto, Frederica Stone, and Ophelia. She met the three of them because they were all involved together in the whole, dance club scene. Unfortunately, Shiloh has been mostly disconnected from the group for a long while due to their situation, and Charlie worries about them quite a lot. She suspects that something is up with them and their spouse, but can't really do anything about it. With Freddie, though, they're partying besties and enjoy hanging out. Note that Charlie has no idea Freddie is in the organized crime ring, nor is she aware that she's friends with Vince or even knows him at all. They mostly just party together. Finally, there's Ophelia, who Charlie has a bit of a crush on. She's a sex-positive asexual lesbian and is interested in Ophelia, but doesn't really get much reciprocation from her. She just hits on her, and in return, all she gets is a slow reptilian blink. Kind of similar to her not knowing everything about Freddie, she doesn't know what Ophelia is and just kind of assumes that her quiet and odd nature is all due to her autism and doesn't suspect anything about her species. She just gets the weird vibes, but chalks it up to the autism, LMAO. And with all of that relationship dynamic stuff concluded, that is the full Charlotte and Felix Noir rundown. If you want to read more specific information about them both, to see some more art of them, or whatever, I will link both of their Toy House pages below so that you can check them out. Also remember that Felix's Ask blog is linked down below as well. These two are pretty much the only mentally stable characters I have, so this is kind of going to be the most normal video in the series. Regardless though, I hope you enjoyed learning more about them. Please let me know in the comments if you like this series, and also if you have a request on what the next OC rundown should be about, because I haven't chosen a character to cover next yet. With all of that being said, if you enjoyed this video, please rate and subscribe if you feel so inclined. You can follow the link to my card in the description if you're interested in following me on other platforms and seeing some of my artwork, both safe for work and if you're over 18, not safe for work as well. Thank you all for watching, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will now bid you all adieu.